Hey everybody, welcome back to Exploring Riverside. In today's video, we're going to talk about 14 pros and cons of living in Riverside, California. This video is going to take Riverside as a whole. It is a big city. It's around 81 square miles with the population of around 340,000. What I will do is once we get into the channel a little further, I'm going to go into individual communities throughout the city of Riverside, do pros and cons on them as well. But for this video, we are going to do the 14 pros and cons of living in Riverside, California. Okay, so the first pro I wanted to talk about with Riverside is that it is centrally located. I have other channels that talk about South Riverside County. A big downfall of South Riverside County is really they're almost in the middle of nowhere, and if you are having to drive for employment or look for employment, it doesn't, there's just far from everything. Riverside's close to, closer to Los Angeles, Ontario, San Bernardino County, Orange County. Now, having said that, the traffic in some areas is horrendous, so even though you are only 30 to 40 miles to a lot of these destinations, that doesn't mean that it's easy to get to. But all in all, Riverside is centrally located to a lot of things, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the next part of the video. Number two, the weather. You can't really argue. It doesn't matter what you hear on the news. I always say this, mass exodus of California. You are always going to have people that are going to move here because of the weather. Now, a lot of people might say, well, in Riverside in the summer, it gets to be 110 degrees. Yes, it does. For probably 2 to 3, maybe even 4 months, there are days that it's going to get well over 100. Now, having said that, how long is it 100 degrees during the day? It's probably 100 degrees from around 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 6 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock at night. So give it a 3 or 4 hour window that you're having those really hot temperatures. But hey, that's what a pool's for. A lot of Riverside homes do have pools. But overall, one of the things that I love about Riverside, California is that 340 days a year, you wake up and there is sunshine. Even when you compare Riverside to the beach, I've lived in both places for many, many years. There are 2 or 3 months where you're going to get that gloomy morning. Well, that's not the case in Riverside. Pretty much, unless it's raining, you are going to have sunshine in Riverside, California, which is, in my opinion, a huge pro. Okay, so the next pro about Riverside, California, contrary to what you might hear, there are a lot of beautiful neighborhoods in Riverside. You have Orange Crest, you have Canyon Crest, you have La Sierra Heights, you have Alessandro Heights. I mean, I could sit here and name 10 communities that personally I would live in and enjoy, feel safe, and you have pride in ownership with the neighbors. So don't let it fool you with people, telling you that Riverside is not a nice city. There are areas of Riverside that I personally would not live, yes, but there are a lot of very nice communities in Riverside with good schools, safe, lots to do. So that would be overall a pro of Riverside County, Riverside, the city of Riverside. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to go into each of these communities and I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each of these communities throughout Riverside moving forward. So, within 3 to 4 months, you are going to have a really good idea of what areas of Riverside you like, why, where you might want to move, what the home prices are. All of these things you are going to understand. Okay, so next pro, there's a lot of history in Riverside. When you compare Riverside to many other areas of Southern California, you have homes down in the Wood Street areas that are over 120 years old. You have the Mission Inn with a lot of history, with presidents going there. There's just, if that is what you like and if that's something that interests you, even if you're not wanting to live in Riverside, strongly recommend that if you are in that area that you go down and check out the Mission Inn, especially during November, December, Christmas time. They have world-renowned, or at least in the United States, renowned lights on the Mission Inn, so that's very, very nice. But bottom line is, just driving through some of the streets of Riverside, the mature landscape of some of these trees that are 70, 80, 90 years old, really pretty, really beautiful, and definitely one of the things that, I truly love about Riverside. Okay, so next up, parks and hiking, things to do outdoors, because we do have some nice weather here in Riverside. I'm not going to go too in depth on all the individual parks. I'm going to save those for the individual communities, because I would be here all day explaining, all the different parks and hiking there is in Riverside. But two of the main attractions, or bigger parks or hikes that you might want to think about doing, one is Mount Rubidoux and the other one is Fairmount Park. So those two are probably the most famous, prevalent areas or parks or hikes in Riverside. Check those out. But overall in Riverside, yes, there's tons of parks. It doesn't matter what community you are in, you will find outdoor space to do things or go hiking. Next up, close to airports. For those that work, for those that like to do weekend getaways, for those that travel, you've got Orange County Airport an hour away. You've got LA Airport an hour and 20 minutes away. You've got Palm Springs Airport 45 minutes to an hour away. And you've got San Diego Airport probably 2 hours away. So you've got a lot of options for that. Okay, so next, weekend getaways. I touched on this just, with flying. It's so convenient to have the airports close. You've got Vegas, you've got Big Bear for skiing, you've got the beaches, which are an hour away. You've got Los Angeles, you've got San Diego, which I think is one of the most beautiful beach cities in America. Coronado, the Coronado Hotel. You've got Julian, for a mountainous area in the fall for apple picking. There's really so many things. And, I talk about this a lot with people. Southern California, in this area, Riverside County, is so convenient to do many, many daily or weekend excursions. Probably, one of the best areas in all of America to live. Not only do you have a lot of things to see and do, and you have the ocean, but you have the nice weather to enjoy while you're actually doing it. Okay, finally, with the pros, there are a lot of golf courses in and around Riverside. And to top that off, they are going to be more affordable than most other areas of Southern California. One of the things that I found when I moved to the beach was I didn't golf as much, because if you want to golf on the weekends at a decent course, you're definitely going to be $120 plus. With Riverside, you probably have 10, 20, 30 golf courses within a half an hour to 40-minute drive. And on average, during the week, you can play a lot of these golf courses for under $45. So that is definitely a pro if you enjoy golfing, which I had to get that into the video because that's one of my pastimes. So yes, golfing, Riverside, awesome area for that. Okay guys, so now we're gonna get into some of the cons of Riverside. Number one, there are some areas of Riverside and some communities that I personally would not live. Crime rates are gonna be higher. I wouldn't feel safe at night. I talk about this, my other channel is Exploring Temecula. I talk about this a lot. There are many, many cities throughout California where you have one street or one area that's very nice, and then within 5, 6, 7 blocks of that nicer area, you have an area that you might not want to be at during night or after dark. So, that's the same thing with Riverside. You can have these nice areas or pockets or communities, but then there are 3 to 5 areas of Riverside that I don't particularly like or would live or would go out, even at night. So just want to be honest with you and give you that information. And I'll go more in depth of these areas and or if you have any specific questions, just call me. You know, I know Riverside very, very well, so I can point you in the right direction with that. Okay, so next up, everybody's heard that Southern California traffic is horrible. Riverside, the 91 freeway is going to be one of the worst freeways in all of America. You know, 40 miles, 30 miles takes you 2 hours at night unless you have fast track. So just be aware that, you know, I talked about it in the video about how Riverside is centrally located. It really doesn't mean much with the traffic. You can still be in your car for hours and hours a week with the traffic. Another area that's getting really bad, in my opinion, for traffic, it always seems to be backed up, is the 215, the 60 by March Air Force Base. Yeah, every time I drive down the 215, it doesn't matter if it's 10 in the morning, you know, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, it always seems to be backed up. Okay, so next up, cost of living. You know, Riverside, when you compare it to the beach cities or the big cities, obviously is less expensive in way of housing costs. But if you compare Riverside to the rest of America, you know, the average house in Riverside right now is probably going to be anywhere from, you know, 500 to 600,000. There's going to be a lot of areas that, you know, the nicer communities, they're going to be up in between 700,000 and 900,000. So yes, it can be and is expensive. Of course, everybody's heard of gas prices. They're probably some of the most expensive in America. But overall, you know, there are 3 or 4 things that are more expensive in Southern California than most other places in America. But once you get past that, you know, food's no more expensive, in my opinion, than, you know, somewhere in Arizona or the Midwest, generally speaking. The produce, we get a lot of it from Mexico. It seems to be inexpensive. But yes, you're going to have a higher tax, a state tax rate. You know, gas prices are going to be higher and home costs are going to be higher. Things like car registration are going to be higher. You know, and I'll do a cost of living for everybody that will break down our costs every month, so you sort of know what you need to be able to live a decent, fun type lifestyle in Southern California. Next up, air quality. There are some days that you're going to see smog. You're close to LA. You've got 350,000 people in Riverside. You've got Corona, you've got cities with hundreds of thousands of people all around Riverside. So it's not just Riverside. You know, Southern California is a very densely populated area, you know, when you compare it to most other places in America. So air quality, especially, you know, summertime, can be not that great. So just want to give you a heads up on that. Okay, finally, with the cons of living in Riverside, there are schools in Riverside in certain communities that you need to be aware of that I wouldn't personally send my kids to, and that's just what it is. You know, when I talk about other areas of Riverside County, same thing. Unless you get down to Murrieta and Temecula, really all, you know, the whole city of Murrieta and Temecula do have good schools. Riverside does have good schools depending on what community you're going to live in. So thank you very much. Our first video on exploring Riverside. We are going to do 2 or 3 videos a week on various things about Riverside County or Riverside City as a whole. And we will bring you the most up-to-date information possible. Excited to do this. And until next time, from Exploring Riverside.